Our first mission was probably the first part of November. And my first one was, I thought, the worst one. It probably wasn't so, but just scared the bejeebers out of me. We went over to Vienna, and as I recall, they had over 500 88-millimeter guns shooting at you. And I saw today that this thing fired 15 rounds a minute. You get 500 of those shooting at you. You know, after that, I just thought, well, I came back, I think I counted 42 holes in the plane, and one or two of them may have been there before that. But one big one went right behind the radio man's head, knocked a chunk out of it. I said, well, this is impossible, we'll never make it. But we did, somehow. Just luck of the draw, that's all I can tell you.
So you were a ball turret gunner on the plane?
No, I was an upper turret flight engineer gunner. Christmas Day was our worst, I guess one of our worst missions. And he went on it too. And we went to Brooks, Czechoslovakia. And well, we all knew Christmas Eve, then we're not going to fly on Christmas. They wouldn't dare. So, if you remember the Battle of the Bulge, everything cleared off. Everything in the European theater was flying, and we were among them. And we went over Brooks, lost some planes, and later in Memphis, Tennessee, they invited 3 or 4 of us, B-17 men, to come to a little party that CAP, anyway, a bunch of airmen invited us. And one guy was telling about, and on Christmas Day, I was in the 15th Air Force, and I said, yes, and I know where you were, over Brooks, Czechoslovakia. He said, yeah, how'd you know? And he got shot down. Luckily, they made it to Russia, stayed there a couple of weeks and found enough parts to get their plane back to Italy. I guess, one time we ran out of fuel and landed at a place called Ancona, Italy, which is up the boot from the spur where we were. And the British didn't want to give us any fuel. And we landed, it was a mud puddle, and we were almost axle deep. They told us to pull off the runway. Well, we just about had to fly that F-17 out of that hole. And as we got on the end of the runway, instead of saying you're ready to take off or whatever, and the British said, off you go, off you go, off you go. So off we go. And got in that, they evidently called on the radio and told them we were going to be late, and we were almost dark, and they had one Jeep at the end of the runway, and our lights had been shot out. The electrical panel had been shot up pretty good, so we didn't have any lights, but we made it. And as we were going down the holy runway, slowing down, the right prop went into one of these mats, took it up and threw it into the number 3 prop engine into the cowling, and took a chunk out of the prop. But anyway, we made it. There's several little things, but nothing really major. And we went all the way through without losing an engine. That was a right 18-20 days, 97. And I've flown behind a lot of engines, but I'll stick with that one. That was number 1.
What was the length of you completed all 50 missions?
No, I had 29 in the war end.
Oh,
I had actually, they gave you credit for difficult missions. I got credit for 48 missions, but actually over the target only 29 times. And all in all, if it hadn't been for all the terrible things that happened, I actually had a pretty good time. And I'm so happy that I met so many good people. It's a wonderful experience without the war being there, but I guess it's the biggest. I still think about the men that I lost. I didn't tell you about that. I was on 3 different crews, one of them went to the Aleutians. All of those were lost. Two of the other men, like the pilot and the navigator, went to Europe. They were on B-24s. And both of them were in Belgrade, Yugoslavia. And they don't know which one's which because they've been buried by the plane, and then they got them out and put them in Belgrade in the military cemetery. But there's hardly, I don't think there's ever been a week past it. I don't think about it. It's just hard. It's hard. Really, it's hard.
And those were guys you trained with?
Oh yeah, that was very close. And the next crew, I said, I'm not going to get that close. Well, that's not so. You can't do that.
Yeah.
But the navigator and the radio man and I have been going to all these reunions since, well, I think Sully started in probably the third time, but 1985, 50th anniversary of the B-17. I went to Seattle. Murphy, my navigator, told me about it, and I've missed two since then. My son was getting married one time, and I went to Europe one time. I hadn't missed another one and wouldn't miss one for the world. We've got Joel, who's the best man you ever heard of. That's been the glue. Really, he has. To our 774th and 463rd, excuse me, Joel. And from there we docked in Naples, and we docked when we got off the ship. There were many ships in the harbor, and the one we got off on, they had fallen over, tumped over, and they cut the superstructure off the tops so they could get up close to them. And we got off on a ship that had sunk and walked across that sunken ship to the docks. And the next day, first thing I saw was an old man sitting on a pier. He had a little spring and evidently a piece of fish or something on it. He drop it down, wait a minute, pull it up, pinch, bite the tail off of it and give it to the little boy there. He'd do this over and over. He'd take one, give one to the little boy. Oh, and that night, some man decided, a soldier decided he didn't need his shoes. So these all Italians were out there begging for whatever, all up and down the dock. So this guy threw his shoes over there, and one went in the water, dirty, filthy water, cold. That night, it was September. He'd go right in and pick that shoe right out of there. That's how desperate they were for anything. The next day when we were marching, I had my K rations in my pocket, and a little Italian kid came by, had my 45 right here, the K rations right here. He went up, got my K ration, was gone. That's again how desperate they were for anything, and it was pitiful to see them. That's when I kind of lost my respect for the clergy that had lots of fat priests and thousands of people starving to death practically. From there, we went to, from the harbor, we got a kind of a boxcar train or 40 at 8, whatever they call it back in France. Went to right outside of Naples, probably 15 miles. I forget what the name of the place was. It was one of the old princesses or somebody's castle or house, big gigantic thing, and we had tents all out on the yard there, and it was a very nice place. We got our first shower, got some ice cream, which was great, and from there, I think we stayed there 2 days, and then we went across on a freight train. They had electric trains, and I was surprised at how well they went. They just really moved, and we had a little kid on the top that would go from boxcar to boxcar. And, you know, he was right next to these electrical wires. But he went up and down them, and he'd get food, and he'd just have a good, everybody knew him on the train by the time we got to Folger. It was a good, fast ride, and I remember went through one long tunnel, and I was at the door. I pulled my feet up like everybody else did, I looked at my watch. I had a look for what they call it, radium on your watches. Well, we went so long, it went out. We finally came out, and we could see daylight, so we seemed to get our feet down and put my feet down and looked out, you know. All of a sudden, we're going along and we go right over a cliff. And I thought, but anyway, this is another. I got a lot of stories now. You better stop me. I got to Folger that night, and we slept in a mess hall, I believe. And the next day, they said, "Go get your tents." Well, none of us had ever put up a tent, and we went to get ours, and there wasn't any left except one that was lying out flat. It had been wet, and we drug that thing over to a spot next to a ditch, and finally got it up, the 6 of us. And that was a trial and funny, and so we did get it up, and it was we got it in pretty good shape. And they told us before we gotten over there, or after we, to get any sort of building material you can and take it with you because you're going to need it. Well, we got a roll of tar paper and a couple of 3 planks, and it did work because we had to put 6 men in a 4-man tent. So we kicked the edges out so we'd have enough room to put a cot under each part. So that worked, and we did that. And he didn't tell you about the stove, so everybody had a drum cut in half and had a hole in it, had a usually a 155 millimeter shell with holes in it, and a P-38 tank with a petcock in it, and running down to this shell, you could put the 115, 145 octane gas in it. That's what we were burning while you people over this side didn't have any gas at all, and we were burning that in our stoves. So again, I'm lost. That's what we had for. That's what we did. We put up our own tent. Finally, well, it started raining. It rains every day in the winter, I do believe, in Italy. And our tent was leaking like a seal, so we had to throw our overcoats, our raincoats over when we were sleeping.